Absolutely. Here's your story in the long, continuous style you've been at.
Okay. Starting my story, I was throwing something away. So here we go.
Asking for Batman Gotham's Night Number 10, Shadows of the Mask. Basil Karlo sat cross-legged on the floor of his father's study, staring at the old mask his father had kept locked in a glass case for years. It was pale, expressionless, and yet it seemed almost alive, staring back at him with a hollow gaze. The room smelled faintly of dust and old leather, the only sound the soft ticking of a grandfather clock in the corner. "Son," his father said quietly, his voice breaking the silence. "I need to tell you something." Basil looked up, wide-eyed, as his father leaned forward in the dim light. He couldn't yet understand the weight behind those words, only that whatever came next would shape him. Years passed like shadows across a wall. Basil grew, and the boy who had once been entranced by a mask became a man haunted by it. He poured his soul into his craft, directing and producing a film he called The Terror, pouring every ounce of obsession and pain into it. The premiere should have been a triumph. Instead, it became a nightmare. He was driving home late one night, the headlights slicing through the fog on the wet road. His phone buzzed incessantly. It was a call he shouldn't have answered. News that his father had been hospitalized after a sudden collapse. Panic gripped him. His hands tightened around the steering wheel. A curve came too fast, the tire skidded across the asphalt, and the world became a blur of shattered glass and crumpled metal. Basil survived, but the crash ruined everything. His career, which had seemed unstoppable, faltered. Studios lost interest. Investors pulled out. The Terror, once a beacon of his ambition, became a symbol of failure, whispered about in industry circles as a tragic misstep. A few years later, the city was abuzz with news. Julie Madison, Bruce Wayne's girlfriend, was starring in a remake of The Terror. The timing gnawed at Basil, the memory of his own ruined work festering into obsession. He secluded himself in a tiny studio, molding clay in his hands, sculpting shapes that shifted and writhed as if they were alive. He wore a clay mask himself, practicing movements, expressions, experimenting. The clay seemed to respond to his anger, his bitterness, his longing. On the set of the remake, Julie sat under the warm glow of the makeup lights. Brushes swept across her face, transforming her into the character she was to play, unaware of the storm gathering outside the studio. Basil watched from the shadows, the clay mask clinging to his face like a second skin. That night, Basil struck. He killed the lead male actor of the film, his hands precise, deliberate, the clay mask hiding his identity completely. When the police investigated, all they found was a clay mask left at the scene, untraceable, holding no DNA, no fingerprints, only the faint echo of malice. Basil returned to his lair, ransacking cans and bottles in his father's old room. One can caught his eye. It was labeled Renew, promising a new face, a new life. Basil applied it with trembling hands, feeling the chemical warmth seep into his skin, reshaping, resculpting. The next day, he slipped into the role of the man he had murdered, the perfect replacement. But supplies ran short. Basil searched desperately, uncovering the source, Roland Daggett. Determined, Basil broke into Daggett Industries under the cover of night, retrieving more cans of Renew. As he fled, Daggett's guards cornered him. They wrestled him into a vat of the liquid, intending to kill him and destroy any evidence. Basil struggled, but the guards failed to notice. Behind the surface of the liquid, the clay itself had separated, forming a monstrous, almost sentient shape that watched silently, hidden. The aftermath was chaos. Batman arrived, investigating the trail of murders, the clay masks, and the whispers of a man who could change his face at will. He followed leads through the streets of Gotham, piecing together fragments of evidence. But the shape Basil had become was elusive, a nightmare that melted away at the first hint of light, leaving only masks, only clay, only shadows. Eventually, Batman traced the menace to a theater, where Basil, now fully transformed into Clayface, sought revenge against the industry that had once mocked him, the city that had ignored him. Chaos erupted. Clayface moved like liquid, striking actors and crew with a terrifying strength, his form constantly shifting. Batman engaged him, dodging strikes, using every skill he had honed over years of crime fighting. In the end, Batman subdued Clayface, securing him with chains and restraining devices designed for the superhuman. Clayface's form writhed, tried to escape, but Batman's planning and foresight won out. He left him to be incarcerated, contained safely, yet the terror of the creature lingered in the theater like a living shadow. In a quiet room, young Basil once more sat before the mask. His father's voice echoed through memory, almost a whisper from the past. Never let them see the real monster inside you. Basil's hand rested on the mask. He had become that monster, but in his mind, it was survival, revenge, artistry, and grief all fused into one. Batman had stopped him, but the lesson of the mask, its power, its malleability, its darkness, was forever etched into Gotham's shadows. And in the city's darkened streets, beneath the faint glow of the moonlight reflecting off broken windows, the legend of Clayface, once Basil Karlo, had truly begun. If you want, I can now write. Here's a full, continuous story for your requested first issue. Hourman number 1, The Hour of Power. Rex Tyler had always been fascinated by time, not just the ticking of clocks or the passing of days, but the fragile, fleeting essence of it. As a child, he would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, imagining the hands of a clock spinning faster or slower, wondering what it would feel like if he could bend time itself. His father, a chemist with a quiet, meticulous nature, often warned him that obsession could be dangerous, but Rex had never listened. Years later, Rex had followed in his father's footsteps, becoming a chemist in his own right. He worked long hours in a small, cluttered laboratory, surrounded by bottles of chemicals, microscopes, and journals filled with calculations and observations. The air was thick with the smell of acids, solvents, and the faint tang of metal from his experiments. Every experiment was a step toward a single, tantalizing goal, a serum that could enhance human ability for exactly 1 hour, a drug that could grant strength, speed, and reflexes far beyond a normal man's limits. He called it the Miraclo formula. Rex tested the serum on himself for the first time in the dead of night. He measured his pulse, his heart racing with anticipation as he carefully injected the glowing amber liquid into his veins. At first, nothing happened. Then, like a sudden surge, power coursed through him. His muscles tensed with strength he had never felt. His senses sharpened. He could hear the faintest creak of the lab's floorboards, see every speck of dust suspended in the air. Time seemed to slow around him, yet in a strange way he moved faster, almost beyond his own perception. For 60 minutes, he was unstoppable, a human engine of precision and might. Rex wanted to test his limits, and the opportunity came faster than expected. Gotham's neighbors had reported a small-time gang robbing a jewelry store, and Rex, still under the influence of Miraclo, raced toward the scene. The gang had barricaded themselves inside, weapons drawn, confident they could escape before the authorities arrived. But they hadn't counted on someone moving faster than the eye could see. Rex struck with uncanny speed, disarming the first thug before he could raise his gun. Another tried to flee, but Rex was already there, pulling him back with a speed that seemed impossible, holding him with precise force while he wrapped him in cords he kept in his coat. The gang was overwhelmed before they even realized what was happening. The police arrived moments later to find the criminals restrained, their weapons useless, and no sign of the hero who had apprehended them. Rex returned home, adrenaline still coursing through him. The serum wore off exactly 1 hour later, leaving him weak but exhilarated. He sat at his kitchen table, staring at the empty syringe, realizing the potential and the danger of what he had created. The power was intoxicating, but it was fleeting, and with it came a responsibility he hadn't yet fully understood. In the weeks that followed, Rex refined his serum, making it safer, more effective. He learned the delicate timing required to inject it, the exact moments when the power would peak, and how to maximize his hour. With each test, he honed his combat skills, his agility, and his reflexes, preparing himself for the inevitable confrontations that would come. It wasn't long before Rex faced his first true challenge. A notorious smuggler, known in the underworld as the Shard, had been trafficking rare and dangerous chemicals through the city. Rex, knowing the potential consequences if they fell into the wrong hands, decided to act. For the first time, he fully embraced his new identity, Hourman. Under the cover of night, Hourman moved with lightning speed, tracking the Shard to a warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Inside, men armed with guns and knives waited, confident no one could stop them. Hourman struck like a blur, disarming and incapacitating them one by one. His hour of power allowed him to leap across crates, dodge bullets, and confront the leader face to face. The Shard barely had time to react before Hourman had him restrained, bound for the authorities. As the first light of dawn touched the city, Hourman slipped away, leaving only the faint impression of speed, a shadow that no one could quite place. A new hero in a city already teetering between darkness and hope. Back in his lab, Rex reflected on the night's events. He knew the Miraclo serum gave him power, but it also gave him responsibility. 1 hour of strength, 1 hour to make a difference. But what would happen when that hour ran out? Rex Tyler, the chemist, the thinker, the man obsessed with time, realized that he had begun a journey that could change the world or destroy it. And as the city stirred awake, unaware of the new protector in their midst, Hourman prepared for the next hour, the next challenge, the next test of both his body and his conscience. The hour was his, but Gotham and the world would soon learn just how far he was willing to go.